I asked an artist a simple question about her work, and the entire room went dead silent. He was just trying to be a supportive boyfriend. His girlfriend of 5 months was a talented artist, and this was a huge night for her, a major art show. He admits he knows nothing about art. His walls are covered in mass-produced prints. His shelves hold cheap souvenirs. But she had worked so hard, and he wanted to be there for her, even if it just meant keeping her glass full while she mingled with clients. The evening also gave him a chance to meet her friends, who were all, like her, native artists. He wasn't. He was white, and he knew this put him on thin ice with some of them. They respected his girlfriend's choice, but he felt like he was constantly being watched, one wrong move away from being judged. He had no idea how right he was. His girlfriend works with silver and gold, metals whose prices have skyrocketed. So, conversations about the cost of materials were common, almost expected, in her circle. He heard them talk about it all the time. But her friends worked in different mediums. One woman in particular, a much more established and respected artist, was a sculptor. She worked with clay. And then came the moment that changed the entire night. The sculptor announced to their small group that she had just sold a massive piece for $20,000. The group erupted in celebration. And in that moment of shared joy, a question popped into his head. A logical question. An engineer's question. He turned to the sculptor and, with genuine curiosity, he asked it. And that's when the music seemed to stop. He saw the smiles freeze on people's faces. He saw the shift in his girlfriend's eyes. She jumped in immediately, a little too quickly, a little too brightly, changing the subject to something, anything else. But the damage was done. The air was thick with a new, uncomfortable tension, and he was at the very center of it, completely clueless as to why. He just stood there, drink in hand, feeling a dozen pairs of eyes on him, wondering what on earth he had just done. For the next hour, he walked on eggshells. He felt the cold shoulders. The clipped, one-word answers. The way conversations would die the moment he approached. He knew he had messed up, but he had no idea how. It was pure social torture. It wasn't until they finally left the gallery, the city lights blurring past the car window, that the silence was broken. The very first words out of his girlfriend's mouth were not a question. They were an accusation. She turned to him, her voice tight with a mix of anger and embarrassment, and told him just how deeply offensive his question had been. He was stunned. Offensive? He was an engineer for the government. His world is one of budgets, logistics, and cost analysis. His own salary is public information. He regularly has conversations with his coworkers about their hourly rates to make sure a project's labor budget is accurate. In his mind, the world ran on a simple formula. Cost of materials plus cost of labor equals the final price. He just assumed art worked the same way. He figured the better artists, the more famous ones, simply had a higher hourly rate they factored in. A talent fee. It was logical. It was mathematical. He tried to explain this to her. He said, "I just thought." But she cut him off. Art, she explained, does not work that way. Especially not with something like clay. Clay is, in his own words, literally dirt cheap. The raw material is practically worthless. To ask how much of a $20,000 sculpture was just the cost of dirt was to completely dismiss everything else. It dismissed the years of training, the lifetime of practice, the vision, the failures, the soul the artist pours into the piece. His innocent question had effectively told this celebrated artist that her talent, her spirit, and her cultural heritage were just a markup on a pile of mud. What happened next is the part one still can't believe. His girlfriend had to spend the rest of the evening in full damage control mode. She moved through the crowd, pulling her friends aside, quietly trying to explain him. Trying to translate his engineer brain logic into something that didn't sound like a profound insult. She had to defend him, explaining that he wasn't malicious, just ignorant of their world and its unwritten rules. She had to vouch for the character of the man who had just, in their eyes, reduced a masterpiece to a bill of materials. Meanwhile, he was tasked with an impossible mission. Apologize to the sculptor without ever mentioning what he was apologizing for. He had to approach her, this woman he had deeply offended, and somehow make amends for a crime he wasn't allowed to name. He stumbled through an awkward conversation, complimenting her work, telling her how incredible it was, how much he admired it. He was trying to non-verbally communicate his regret, hoping she would see the sincerity in his eyes and forgive the clumsy words he'd said earlier. It was one of the most uncomfortable and humiliating experiences of his life. He felt like a child who had broken a priceless vase and was now trying to praise the beauty of the shattered pieces. He learned a powerful lesson that night. You don't ask an artist how much they sold a piece for. You count yourself lucky if they volunteer that information. And you sure as hell don't ask them how much it cost to make. You don't ask a painter the price of their canvas and tubes of paint. You don't ask a poet the cost of their pen and paper. Because the value isn't in the asterisk stuff. It never was. The value is in the transformation. It's in the magic that happens when a human hand, guided by a unique vision, turns worthless dirt into something that can make you feel, something that can move you to tears, something worth $20,000. He might not be banned from future art shows. But he says he is absolutely, under no circumstances, allowed to ask any more questions. He's there to carry drinks, smile, and keep his logical, engineering mouth shut. This is a classic case of two worlds colliding. On one hand, you have a man operating on pure logic and transparency, a world where costs and value are broken down and analyzed on spreadsheets. His question, from his point of view, was innocent and born of genuine curiosity. He wasn't trying to devalue the art, he was trying to understand it in the only way he knew how. But on the other hand, the artistic community saw it as a profound insult. They saw it as reducing a lifetime of dedication, skill, and cultural expression to a simple receipt for materials. It stripped the magic away and replaced it with a price tag. They felt his question implied that the artist's soul was just a commodity to be marked up. So who was really in the wrong here? Was he an ignorant fool who should have known better than to bring his cold logic into a world of passion and spirit? Or were the artists being overly sensitive and gatekeeping their world from an outsider who was just trying to learn? Was his innocent question a truly offensive act, or was the reaction a sign of an art world that's completely out of touch with reality? Let me know in the comments.